social investment, and insecurity. So if you'd like to be part of it, stick around. I do hope we're able to run through because of our time. Let's look at some very important things, right? We recall that Nigeria's economy was once the world's most promising. Of course, it had struggled with tepid growth, including 5 months recession. That was in the first tenure of Mr. President, by the way. And the effect has been very significant. Unemployment, the unemployment rate had doubled, and more people, of course, we had reports of Nigeria being the number one in terms of poverty, and some would say, oh, Nigerians live in extreme poverty than anywhere else in the world. What is this government doing to ensure that, oh yes, there's job creation across board? We just have to get straight into this.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Let's start with that. First of all, consider the fact that every year we have approximately 1 million young people coming out of the education system, coming into a job market that is not accommodating them. For so long, for decades now, nearly 50 years, or not, about 40 years now, I would say, probably since the 70s into the 80s and 90s up until now, we've had a non-inclusive economy where you have maybe sometimes 7 or 8% growth, but it's not inclusive growth. The growth reflects money coming in through high rates of oil and gas revenues. And obviously, the oil sector is not labor intensive. It's capital intensive, but not labor intensive. So it doesn't employ people. What employs people are sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, in industry. That's now what Mr. President has said. We need to shift the economy from the mono economy that's non-inclusive into an inclusive economy that is diversified into some of the sectors I've mentioned. That's a starting point. The second thing is, in terms of what Nigerians can expect from the next level administration for the next 4 years, is this. We're doing a program. I'm sure you're aware of trader money, for example. There's been a lot of talk about that. Approximately 1.7 million Nigerians currently have access to those funds for their businesses at that level. What this administration is going to do is to scale it up in the next level to what we're calling the People Money Bank. So that means that instead of just market traders, we're now extending it to all Nigerians. That's hairdressers, car mechanics, KK operators, taxi operators, conductors, you name it. Whatever small business you're running, you are eligible so long as you're a Nigerian citizen. In the People Money Bank, we're going to offer interest-free loans of up to 1 million naira for 10 million Nigerians. Anyone who knows how industrious and enterprising Nigerians are know that if they can get their hands on up to 1 million naira interest-free, they're going to be able to turn that into maybe 5 million, 10 million, start employing young people, and the economy starts moving again. People are paying taxes, we're able to fund infrastructure, and it becomes cyclical, an inclusive economy. That's the inclusive growth we're looking for. So the People Money Bank is on the one end. On the second end, we have an initiative we're calling Skill Up Nigeria. Skill Up Nigeria. What that is we're partnering with key private sector companies in Nigeria to say we're going to develop a voucher system which will essentially pay a small stipend to Nigerians who are going to be trained in practical skills in companies around the country. So they're not going to be being paid by the companies. They're going to have a voucher. They're going to be paid by government. 10 million Nigerians are going to be skilled up so that when they come out of the skilling up process and they have these practical, tangible skills that they can apply, they now have access to the interest-free loans in the People Money Bank to develop their own SMEs. So those are two very critical measures. Now, in terms of young people, we know we have a very digital, massive group of young people that know what to do, they know how to do it, they don't have access to what they need. So what government has done is we have established some innovation hubs around the country in every geopolitical zone. But in the next level, we're going to scale that up into what we're calling an innovation fund. That's going to be a $500 million innovation fund, which is going to supply funds to these innovation hubs. We're going to employ up to 500,000 youths in the innovation hubs in critical centers like Lagos, Computer Village, in around Ariaria, in Aba, for example. Wherever you have these talented blocks, that's where we're going to focus on, especially in Edo as well. So these are some of the measures. And then on top of that, the federal government is now engaging agriculture very seriously. We know this, but now we have to figure out how we're going to mechanize. So what Mr. President did last year when he met with American President Donald Trump in the White House is he struck a deal with a key tractor development company in the world, John Deere, which many are familiar with. They develop tractors and other agriculture mechanization equipment. Now, what that is going to mean for Nigeria is that they're going to establish 780 processing, tractor development and processing centers around the nation. 6 main manufacturing hubs where we're going to be building our own tractors and our own mechanization equipment for agriculture, because it's going to be sustainable. We have tens of millions of farmers out there doing work. They're doing it manually. If they can get if they can be mechanized, then obviously we're going to be doubling and tripling outputs in half the time and all of that. And we're going to be able to employ more people, et cetera, et cetera. So these are some of the inclusive plans that the government has in place. And we're going to and we're saying it openly to the Nigerian public so that they can hold us accountable to these promises.
Good stuff. Now, very juicy promises you've reeled out right here on the radio. You've talked about the People Money Bank, which involves 1 million naira across board. This is just
for
like
10 million Nigerians.
For 10 million Nigerians.
That's right.
1 million naira for 10 million.
Up to 1 million naira. It doesn't mean everybody's going to. It depends on what they need.
I wanted to clarify
exactly.
on that. Yes, you also talked about Scale Up Nigeria.
Right.
Now, how is this government, able to achieve? Will this government be able to achieve this before 2023? Because Nigerians would want to hold you to your words and promises.
Yes, absolutely.
Recalling that in the first tenure of the administration, you weren't part of it at the time, but the first tenure of Mr. President, a lot of promises were made. Some were able to be delivered. They were able to deliver on some of the promises made, and some others were not delivered. And so now some feel like these promises or some of the things you said, which are expectations, let's tie them to the reality on ground.
No, that's exactly where I wanted to go, because the beauty of it is this. When somebody makes a promise, the natural next question, right, the response would be, okay, what have you done to give me the sense that this next promise could be achieved? So now I'll just give you the social investment as an example. If government says in the next level administration, we're going to put 15 million school children, or we're going to feed 15 million school children, right? It sounds like a huge promise. What evidence do we have? Well, in the first 4 years, when the oil revenues were low, we put 9.8 million children in the school feeding program. It's evident in 32 states around the country. It's going on. So if it has been done in the first 4 years, why wouldn't we be able to extend that to 15 million the second time? That's just for an example. Now, to your question about how it is that we can ensure that those promises are kept, the People Money Bank, the 1.7 million Nigerians that were covered under the trader money, farmer money, and market money schemes. Recall that there was massive controversy in the National Assembly because there was heavy politics being played. The leadership of the National Assembly was obviously PDP. Now you had an APC-led executive, right? Now there was basically these ideas being thrown out there that this is vote buying, that this is this is that, and they didn't want to fund these programs. Now, you have a National Assembly that is led by the same party as the executive. You have a National Assembly led by Senate President Ahmad Lawan, who's ready to work with President Muhammadu Buhari. And the implication is that these programs and projects that are very important for Mr. President, for the best interest of all Nigerians, are not going to be short-funded over political reasons. They are going to be funded properly, and we're going to be able to escalate it on the basis of the funding available. That's the key difference that I want Nigerians to understand this morning.
All right. So basically, in terms of job creation, this administration would go into SMEs, if you permit me to say that.
That's right.
And then how about other sectors, basically? Because we've understood before now in the first tenure of Mr. President, he talked about agriculture and did mention that, agriculture was one of the ways we're able to employ over 5 million Nigerians.
That's right.
So are we going to see the same in this second administration of Mr. President, or we're going a notch higher to look into SMEs? Or beyond SMEs, there are other sectors Mr. President might want to, delve into to create jobs for the young teeming Nigerians?
Absolutely. First of all, one of them, when you talk about agriculture, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the mechanization program is coming with an attached projection and promise of 5 million jobs. I don't know if I said that, but I want to make that clear.
Okay.
Mechanization of agriculture will come with 5 million jobs around this country. Now, in terms of other sectors, we know that in the 1980s, the cotton, textiles, and garments industry was the second highest employer of labor in the nation, after the federal government and the federal civil service itself. What we have seen progressively over the last 30 or 40 years is a decline into nothing. We've been importing essentially all of our textiles. we currently have an import bill of about $4 billion every year on cotton, textiles, and garments. So what Mr. President did in his wisdom in the first tenure was he signed Executive Order 3 on local content, saying what we can produce locally, we will no longer import. We are going to put restrictions on these items because we can produce them here. So what he's now done is he has now extended that, he's now turned that into a presidential directive to all MDAs to say that from now on, our public hospitals, the uniforms that we're wearing, we're not going to import those. Our military, the uniforms we're wearing, we're not going to import those. Police, the same thing. We're going to sign long-term contracts with Nigerian cotton, textile, and garment factories that are going to go straight to Nigerian cotton farmers. So there's a backward integration down to the level of the farmers to ensure that we're developing the inclusive economy. That sector alone is going to produce 2 million jobs in the next level. These are things I'm saying openly so Nigerians can hold us to account once again. On the issue of, I think you asked me about a different sector. What was the other sector?
Aside agriculture, aside the SMEs, what other sectors is Mr. President working, tirelessly to ensure that we create jobs for Nigerians?
Very good. Okay, so we've touched on the innovation hubs, ICT, we've touched on SMEs. That's the major one because of our population. Agriculture. Another one is going to be the foreign direct investment. Right now, we know that we just signed the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. There's approximately $50 billion of new investment that's going to be flooding into Africa for those who are part of it. Fortunately, we are part of it, and we're not just part of it, but we are a leading destination because of our market size. People want to build factories and industries here because of that.
I'd like to know the plans we have in terms of this agreement we've gone into.
Sure.
What are we going to do to be able to match up with other countries?
Absolutely. First of all, Mr. President has seen that if we're going to industrialize, if those companies are going to come into Nigeria instead of, say, South Africa, it's going to be because we have the enabling factors in place. That's power. I want to address power because that's the one that Nigerians always say, look, if we get power, we can get this thing running.
Exactly.
Now, this is what has basically happened over the first term. We have been able to move power generation now from 5,000 megawatts power generation to 7,000 megawatts power generation.
Okay.
We have been able to move power transmission from 5,000 megawatts in the first term to 7,000 megawatts, almost 8,000 megawatts transmission. Now, Nigerians are saying, wait, we're not getting that in our homes. We're not seeing that in our homes and businesses.
I'm one of those who was about
exactly.
to say
No,
that.
it's a very true. It's a fact that the output is not up to what I'm saying. The output is 3,500. The question is, why is it 3,500 if government has it has increased generation and transmission? And the answer is because power distribution has not shifted. It has not moved. It is still at 3,500 megawatts, which means if you like, generate 100,000 megawatts, transmit 100,000 megawatts. If your distribution capacity can only carry 3,000, that is what Nigerians are going to receive. So you ask, why has that not been addressed in the first term? Because the distribution companies are owned by private firms, and government cannot tell private firms what to do. What they can do, though, is to now partner with private firms to say, look, where do you need help? We're willing to step in and help you with the support you need to make this work. Now, if this was a pre-privatized power sector, it would be easier. But this is what has happened now. At the beginning of this second term, President Muhammadu Buhari just signed a very important MOU with the global brand of Siemens, the engineering firm from Germany. And this is a fallout of last October and November's meeting between Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, and President Buhari in State House. And basically the fallout of that was they're going to do a deal with Siemens, where Siemens, in Mr. President's wisdom, he said, because we have stranded power that Nigerians are not feeling, let us first focus on distribution. So what he has agreed, the Siemens engineers from November to about May went around this country, looked at every substation in the country, all the distribution infrastructure in the country, did a forensic audit of all the distribution infrastructure and said, based on our findings in each place, because each place has its own peculiarity, some require reconstruction, some require renovation, rehabilitation, depending on the scale. Based on the forensic audit, they've now said this is what we need to do in each and every substation to ensure that we get distribution to 7,000 megawatts to match generation and transmission. So by 2021, with the implementation of the Siemens deal, I want to say it for every Nigerian to hear, by 2021, the Siemens deal will ensure that distribution capacity will go to 7,000 megawatts, which means instead of 3,500, we will be receiving 7,000 megawatts in our homes and businesses by 2021. That's 2 years from now. Now,
this is achievable.
This is very achievable, and we're going to prove it. By 2023, the projection within the Siemens deal is that we would have extended generation, transmission, and distribution to 11,000 megawatts. Because right now we have ongoing generation projects. The president hasn't stopped working. He has been working very diligently on the Kaduna power plant. Kashimbila is about to come on stream. Zungeru, 700 megawatts, is about to come on stream. Afam Fast Power is about to come on stream. You have so many power projects that are about to come on stream.
I'm tempted to say you already sound like a politician.
No, this is sincerity. This is sincerity. This is
very, very amazing.
Politics.
All right, so our guest in the studio is Ajuri Ngelale, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. We've touched on the issue of job creation. He's just talked about power. I would like to take you back a bit, right? Talk about something very important. And this would be in the first tenure of Mr. President in regards to education. I will try to tie that to the social investment program. Now, there were a few promises made. I'll reel a few of them out, as well as some of the achievements I have, and then you can go on to react to it. Now, the President talked about, or the President and his handlers talked about 20% annual budget. Also, substantial investments in training quality teachers at all levels.
Very important.
Reduce malpractice in the sector to a low level. Provide 1 meal a day for all primary school pupils. Also creates jobs in agriculture, catering, and delivery services. They went on to talk about establishing at least 6 University of Science and Technology. Address out-of-school children. That's a very serious issue in Nigeria at the moment, with an increasing number. Ensure 30 million Nigerians become literate within 3 years. And let's jump over to some of what they were able to achieve. Approval of 1.9 billion for intervention fund for each university that was achieved. Compulsory basic education for pupils. Bayelsa State is one to mention. And the school feeding program. Some people have reacted to that very one. Oh my goodness, 500 billion naira was mentioned in some quarters on that very issue. And there were so many speculations, controversies, counter reactions to that. I want you to react on that very issue or just talk a bit about the educational sector.
Very well, very well. Thank you so much. First of all, understand that if somebody says something in public, it can become a controversy.
Okay.
And we have to be able to understand the difference between an allegation and what it has been proven with facts. When we talk about the SIP, you have a lot of people, a lot of political interests that want to basically look at the SIP and say, look, we had an opportunity to govern this country. We didn't necessarily consider anything of this scale. This government is doing it. We don't want this kind of program to become too popular. So let's tell everybody that there's a whole bunch of corruption going on. There's a whole bunch of theft going on so that Nigerians can look at what is a good program with suspicious eyes. That's the political game. Now, in terms of the actuality on ground, the 500 billion you mentioned is the yearly budget for the social investment program. But it is on record that the actual cash release, that's the budget. The actual cash release for the program has not surpassed 150 billion in any year.
Okay.
I want that to be clearly understood.
So it was annually budgeted 500
That's
billion.
right. And cash releases because of shortfall of revenues. We have budget deficit. Right. So now what we have here now is you have, like we said, 9.8 million school children being fed. Obviously, we've never seen anything like that in history. We have currently 300,000 of the poorest Nigerians across 25 states on the conditional cash transfer program. Now, a lot of people don't understand the conditional cash transfer program. They think it's just a handout to some very impoverished Nigerians. But there are actual conditions attached. First of all, any beneficiary of that program has been audited to know that indeed this person's income has never been above, say, 1,000 naira in a month, for example. It's 5,000 naira a month under the program. The condition is that they have to be trained. They actually go through a skills development training so that they can develop their own very small scale enterprise, even if it's selling pomo in the market or whatever the case may be. Then the other one is that, particularly in the far north, they have a condition that says if you are collecting this money under the conditional cash transfer, that's why it's called conditional cash transfer, that you have to send your children to school. You cannot put your children on the street to beg or to be working to earn money. We're going to give you this cash so that your child doesn't have to work. That child can go to school. These are some of the very critical measures that have been put in place. And again, we've said we're going to scale that up to 15 million school children in terms of working out the enrollment rates. Now, you touched on education, and this is a very important issue to Nigerians. What the federal government is doing in the next level is already we have seen, aside from the innovation hubs, we have already seen these Wi-Fi spots coming up around the country under the Google platform. I don't know if you've seen the Wuse market, for example, around the country. We're seeing them coming up. What the federal government is doing, particularly under the purview of Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, struck a deal with Microsoft and Google to essentially revolutionize our education system. What is going to happen now is we have one of the highest recurrence in the African continent, paying teachers to manually stand in a classroom, many of whom have unfortunately not been trained for decades or retrained. So what we have now is we're looking at, first of all, retraining all of our teachers in digital literacy so that they can deliver the kind of ICT-driven education system that we want to bring in place. That means you go to a classroom in, say, Zaria, for example, you're going to see a screen. Instead of a teacher standing in front of a class, you're going to see a screen. That same teacher teaching that same subject is going to appear on a projection screen in a different part of the country in a classroom. So now what you have is a facilitator in a classroom instead of a teacher. I hope this is
sounds really interesting.
I hope this is clearly understood. So these are some of the things we're doing. The next thing I want to touch is the curricula. How do we prepare the future of Nigeria for the future of the global economy? Because we know it's not a natural resources-based economy anymore. It's a knowledge-based economy. Those who are making money are those innovating, building apps, etc. So what the federal government has done is at the federal level now, working with state governments, we are now revolutionizing the curricula and embracing STEAM. That's science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And we're going to bring in practical skills like robotics and coding. You say, how are you going to do all of these things? It sounds great. In practical terms, how are you going to do this? What we're doing is every year, within the budgets, Nigerians are going to be able to scrutinize this. Within the budgets, 10,000 public primary and secondary schools every year are going to be refurbished and renovated to include these kinds of ICT laboratories that are going to train children in robotics, coding, animation, and other practical skills that are going to prepare them for the future of our universities that are also developing and also the future of the global economy. So we should expect within the next level about 40,000 public primary and secondary schools being renovated to accommodate the new curricula.
Quite interesting, plans you've reeled out, and I hope that this meets the reality on ground and is, actually achieved. But let's talk about out-of-school children.
Yes, please.
The numbers increasing. What plans also does these governments have to accommodate these children? They are Nigerians.
Absolutely. Well, I think, first of all, the president has been very clear that he is going to lead the move against the abrogation or the ban on the Ajuri system. That is going to have a huge impact because essentially what has happened is there has been a lack of political will amongst